listening to Two Babies in a Business, a podcast about business marketing, growth strategy, staff, clients. What else do we talk about? Babies, marriage, all of the things. I'm Christina. This is Peter. We are founders and leaders of CIPR Communications. And we are still talking through our series on in-house versus agency, which is a question we get all the time. I'll start just by saying I actually had a conversation with a client not too long ago. Between the times we've been recording, and just that, again, conversation about, okay, so is there possibility to transition to someone in-house, and what can we? And the answer is always yes, but that answer of, are there certain things this person actually wants to do or can do, or kind of just that understanding skill sets. And through this conversation, just kind of peeling back the layers of okay, so you probably need some support somewhere. So let's have that conversation. But yeah, just a point of that being this comes up all the time. People are always wondering this. So if you're wondering it, you're not alone.
Yeah, for sure. And today we're talking about sort of choosing an agency. So you've decided that whether you have an in-house person or not, you need an agency. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about what you should be thinking about and considering when choosing your agency. And maybe I'll start with saying something that we've been talking about quite a bit on this podcast, that it's really mostly about or largely fit and culture and sort of personality fit, and likability and all those types of factors are really, really important. Obviously the agency relationship, like a staff relationship, is one that you go through trials and tribulations with, and it's not all, just easy peasy lemon squeezy. That's a thing, speaking of babies, something our babies have been saying a lot lately. But yeah, it's sort of, there's wins and there's fun and there's challenges, and, it's like any kind of relationship, right? So I think first and foremost, sort of personality fit and matching and feeling good with people is probably the most important factor, certainly for us as an agency in terms of thinking about clients we want to work with. I'm more and more aware over time, as a salesperson about if this is how the sales conversation is going, I can imagine that this is going to transition into the into the relationship, and often that's true. So
no, I think there's this big factor of, that gut feeling you get when you meet someone. Treat your hiring of an agency similar to as you would, hiring an in-house staff. And I think there's a big, conversation around skill set and, okay, case studies or, reference checks, all those things are important. But I think there's just, you are now not only hiring someone, but you're adding to your team, and you're adding to your team and making that team less centralized, right? It's not people down the hall from you. Now it's, an agency that you have to be comfortable enough to call up on a Zoom call or call on the phone or schedule regular meetings with. So it's that ease of relationship, I think, can't be ignored. Mm-hmm. I think it's something where I look at some of our, I would say, most successful client relationships, and there's always just been this kind of ease in terms of that. And I think it kind of starts with that honesty, right? Coming to the table with, these are all the things I know. These are all the things I don't know. Because nothing is worse. And I think about one particular client we worked with where basically, told us, yeah, I've done this a million times before. I know exactly everything about what you're going to be executing for us. I have 100% comfort level. Let's go. And so we come into that in a trusting way, going, all right, this person's done this before. Let's go. And, you're talking at this high technical level, or you're potentially skipping things in a conversation because you assume they know. And it just, one, it comes across poorly for us. Two, it comes across poorly for the individual, because, you know, now they're feeling out of the loop and frustration happens. And, but it's like just coming in, you know, in that no judgment, lay it all down. Hey, here's what I know. Here's what I don't know. Here's the gaps I'm looking for you to fill, and go from there. And if you don't have the, I feel like, comfort to be able to like be super honest with the agency that you're choosing, like if they come across as like, I don't know, snooty or whatever it is, or, you know, maybe you come across as knowing more than them, then maybe, you know, question that too. But just that ease, I think, becomes so important, and be honest with them when you're choosing them, right? It goes two ways. Because if you're honest, then they have the ability to go, well, no, that's not where I can fill a void. But I could suggest someone else to you. Like coming in honest like that, I think is so important.
Yeah. I think the number one thing I'll say when you're choosing an agency not to focus on is the price. I say that, you know, like, there's a lot of agencies out there. Like, so many of the services we provide are somewhat commoditized. And obviously there's a lot of competition when it comes to price. And I hear all the time, well, those guys can do it cheaper. And it's like, cool. Well, like, call me when, you know, they've like wasted your money for a year, and let's talk, you know, have a serious, like, and I'm not being cheeky. Like, I'm being very serious, because like, you know, if it's just like the lowest price person, you're going to get what you pay for. And, often less experienced agencies, or less experienced like individuals that are trying to pose as agencies, trying to like make themselves look bigger and more experienced than they are, often will be the lowest price. And that's not totally true. And I don't want to be completely saying, you know, lower price providers can't do a good job, but, like, you get what you pay for. And if you're just focused on the lowest price and whatever, I could tell you right now, you're not the client for us, because I want to focus on your outcomes and what you want to achieve, and your goals and your business growth. To me, those two things don't necessarily go together with price, because I want to provide value. And if you're basically just grinding me down to the cheapest possible price, we're actually at a point as an agency where we're just not even going to take you on as a client, because we want to work with partners, and we want to work with partners who value the value we bring. And we want to work with partners who, you know, have a long-term view on achieving serious business goals and real growth and long-term objectives. Right. So
I have two thoughts about this. So one, that buy what you pay for, I think, is completely accurate. And I think we come at it from two perspectives: that providing value, but it's also like, I'd like to think you and I are some pretty kind and caring individuals. It's like that. I sleep very well at night, and I wouldn't sleep very well at night knowing we were taking your $500 a month budget and putting it towards things where I know it's not going to make a difference, right? Like, we work with experts and use tools, and our internal knowledge can tell us, based on an industry, how successful a certain budget is going to be or not. And so there comes a point, and again, it's very industry dependent, but if you're only willing to invest X, then we're going to be honest with you and go, well, that's not going to get you great results. That's going to be, you might as well keep that money, save up, do something else, than throw it at a marketing tactic that isn't going to work. So I feel like there's that piece of it that, that agency. I'm actually going through this with another client right now. And it's like, you're actually going to talk to them after this call, after this recording, but it's like, we have this amount of budget. Is this sufficient? And we are more than happy to have those conversations and to either go, no, so can we invest it somewhere else? Or yes, this is great. Or, right, like, your agency should be able to answer those questions. So I think, like, as you're choosing an agency, throw those budgetary numbers out. And if they're, oh yeah, number one, don't worry. Like, again, as seen on TV, like, the cheapest, or if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
It is. Yeah. And I'm exactly like, it's fine to have a budget in mind. It's actually really good to have a budget in mind, but like, have a budget in mind with an open mind, because like, again, and we've made this mistake before where our clients have said, this is my budget and this is all I have. And then we've taken those on, this is like learning pains, unfortunately. And we've taken those on and we haven't succeeded. And so I just know from experience now that, like, and in one case, I can tell you specifically, I told the client that's not going to be enough budget. You're in a very competitive industry. The cost per clicks for Google ads is just what it is. I can't change that. And like, you're not going to show up in terms of your ads. And he insisted, and I sort of said, fine, which was my mistake. And, sure enough, we spent money and achieved nothing. And then, later on, luckily this is a good friend with a longstanding relationship. He came back to, not came back to us. He was with us through the whole time, but he came back to a conversation saying, I think you were right. Obviously the budget isn't where it needs to be. Soon as we got the budget to the appropriate level, it was just like, boom, his phone started blowing up and his growth, his business started growing exactly what he wanted to achieve. Right. So it's really, a good agency will give you good advice and won't just sort of jump on every single, dollar that you throw their way, like they're, trying to eat crumbs off the floor. A good agency will know their value and their worth, and probably won't negotiate that much with you on price. And I think that's a good sign of an agency you probably want to think about working with potentially.
Yeah. And the second thing I really think about when we hear from a client, like, oh, well, like this agency over here will do the exact same thing as you for $250 a month. And it's like, one, like, this is a bit ranty, but I always think about like, how is that person living? How is that business surviving? Like, what are they doing? Like, and to me, in those circumstances, it so waters down the value and the significance of what a marketing and communications agency can do. Mm-hmm. Right. So, I mean, there's like a level of frustration for me around, coming to market as the cheapest bidder. And yes, there's always going to be someone who will invest in that. And who knows what the results will be. That's not for us to kind of comment on. But, when you're discounting your services to that degree, my mind goes to, and like, what is lacking then? Is it that relationship? So you are only focused on technical? Is it the ability to be nimble, right? Are you just setting and forgetting things? Like, ask questions around like, how many hours a month do you spend on this thing? And I mean, we could tell you, right? Like, we have those numbers. I know for, the SEO piece, okay, we're going to spend 10 hours a month doing this, 8 doing that. And that's where you get this investment total and money. But yeah. And I think the same on the other side, we've come across recently, agencies on the far other side of like, they're charging you what a month to do that?
Yeah, crazy, right? Yeah.
And it's like, and sorry, is your ad budget included in that price? No, it's separate. And they're what? So again, like, I am a broken record, but it's like, trust your gut. Like, if it seems like a lot, like, never be afraid to ask an agency, write the list of all the things that you're doing, all the hours, things. And like, Peter, to your point, like, if they have enough clients, like, so like us, like, we know those numbers because we deal with,
and they're done that. Yeah.
Like, we've dealt with multiple clients on multiple things. Like, if someone came to me and called me after this, it's like, I can tell you, yeah, that's an 8-hour a month thing. Or, let's separate this out as a project so it doesn't impede on your other work. Like, your agency, when you're choosing them, should know those numbers. Maybe it's not necessarily like the salesperson, but if like you're in that next meeting and someone operational is there, like, quiz them. Like, I welcome it.
Yeah. And I get asked, and, I actually had a sales conversation yesterday where it's like, I as a salesperson really try not to focus on costs and price up front as much as possible. But, it's fair question. And I had a great conversation yesterday with somebody, a prospect, and, she just sort of said, hey, can you give me some sense of your pricing? I said, it is early for that conversation. And it's very hard for me to tell you right now what anything's going to cost because I just don't know anything yet. We have a lot of conversation to have to understand, but I did say, roughly speaking, this is our pricing. This is kind of the ranges of what we typically price. And for a client like you, I would envision something along these lines. But I know those numbers off the top of my head, no problem. Right. And I'm, we don't discount, and I would be frankly hesitant to work with a company that, you know, is like willing to just like accept any number you throw at them. I think that's a really, really dangerous thing. And, you know, and so my other kind of point about, you know, hiring an agency is have a long-term view, right? Like it's expensive, both from a financial perspective, but also from a time in-house perspective, to be hiring agencies, to be looking for new agencies, to be firing agencies, to be transitioning agencies, to be hiring somebody in-house, and then to bring, you know, like that's just churn, and churn is very expensive and unproductive. And so, you know, think long term about your agency partner. And again, I mean, that's sort of like how, you know, spend the money and time up front to have a strategy in place, you know, really understand what your goals are, all of those things we've been talking about on this podcast for a long time. It's like that's what sets you up for long-term success and what gets you you know, performing as quickly as possible. You know, and this is something I need to get better at as a salesperson, but like having more controversy in that sales process, right? And so you know, if your salesperson's pushing back on you, don't get offended. Like actually, you know, like they're probably really like have your best interest in heart when they're pushing back at you, because, you know, they know what they know and they probably bring their experience to the table, and it's just why they're pushing back on you on things, right?
Yeah. I feel like you may have something to end with too, but I will try to end with this. Look for an agency that's asking a lot of questions. I think that, you know, in the interview process, if you're interviewing an agency, or if you've just approached them cold in an email, or you're sitting down with someone who's been recommended to you, is that agency trying to find out as much as possible about you, your pain points, your things like your tone of your business, your what you've done before, what you haven't, successes in past relationships with it. Like in those situations, like if you have left that and you haven't done any talking as the business owner or as the marketing manager or director, how is that agency realistically going to be able to tell you if you are a fit for them, right? So I think it's like, to me, it's like you do that in the sales process. I feel like we do that through even like RFP responses. Like we're asking questions first. And then the very first thing you get when you come on as a CIPR client is an onboarding session where essentially your project manager and your project team is on a call. We show you our CIPR process and, you know, go through that for 10 to 15 minutes and your passwords, whatever. But that last like half of the meeting, we're just asking the client a bunch of questions and getting to know them. And like that lays the foundation for all the work that's going to be done. And sometimes it leads to more sessions or not. But it's like, if that agency is not asking questions, then like be highly suspicious. If they're just kind of answering your questions and treating it like a job interview, then they're looking just for a job, as opposed to looking for a partnership and a relationship and looking to find out whether they can actually solve your problems and be a good solution provider. And that's really what you want, is somebody who's really thinking about your problems and whether they can solve them, and somebody that will honestly tell you whether they can or can't. And I mean, our sales process has been completely premised around that. Like, I don't want to work with somebody if I can't solve the problem and if I can't help them. Last thing I want to do is like get paid and then have somebody say that they took my money and I don't know what results I got. Like, I don't want that. You don't want that. And so really, nobody wants that. Yet that's unfortunately kind of how things go most of the time. So really, to your point, is somebody who's really trying to understand your business and understand your issues and your problems and the things you're trying to solve is probably somebody you should be paying attention to, even though you might find it a little annoying in the sales process in terms of like, why are you asking me all these questions? Like, I'm the one that's trying to hire you, right? The reality is the good agencies are asking those questions because they want to know if they can help, and they want to confidently propose a solution to solve your problems for you. Well, there you have it. Ask questions, but make sure they're asking questions. Yeah. Trust your gut, build trust. That's it for this episode. So if you are enjoying the podcast, make sure you follow us on iTunes or Spreaker or Spotify so you get notified of the latest episodes, and leave us those comments, questions, suggestions on social media. CIPR Comms on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. and Facebook, all the things. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
3, 2, 1.